Welcome to our movie review. In this video we'll explain the movie Fighter in the Wind, released in the year 2004. It is revealed that the movie is based on a true story. The film begins in 1945 in Japan, a nation that has been devastated by World War II. A young Korean boy named Choi Bidal aspires to enlist in the Japanese Air Force because he wants to fly fighter jets. On his way home, he runs into Chun Bae, a Korean thug who attempts to take his money by posing as an undercover police officer. Choi, on the other hand, quickly learns his true identity and attacks him. Later, it is shown that Choi and Chun Bae are traveling to the Air Force training camp in a truck. Chun Bae tries to escape the truck, but when other criminals pursue him, he is compelled to get inside. The next scene reveals that Choi and other Koreans are being tortured while being tied to a pole. When Kato, the camp's chief commander, arrives, one of his men is ordered to release the Koreans who have been bound when men start acting strangely toward them. As soon as the Koreans are released from their ties, one of them insults and swears at Kato. When Kato learns of this, he challenges Choi to a duel, promising to free all the Korean prisoners if he wins. Choi engages the commander in combat utilizing the traditional Korean fighting technique known as Taekyon, but is quickly vanquished. Luckily, before Kato can kill him, an American fighter plane attacks at the base and the Koreans are able to flee, saving their lives. Afterwards, Choi starts helping Chun Bae run his small shop in the market of Tokyo. When everything is going fine, a local gangster named Yakuza and his men arrive at Chun Bae's stall and ask for some money. Chun Bae refuses their request and in turn gets beaten by the group severely. Upon seeing this, Choi intervenes and tries to save his friend. He fights with the gangsters alone until the gang leader puts a katana by his neck, threatening to kill him. Afraid of the situation, Choi pees his pants. He is then bullied and forced by the gang leader to lick his own urine that splashed on his shoes. Furthermore, he's humiliated publicly as he is forced to announce himself as a bedwetter of Ikebukuro. Shortly after, a middle-aged man Bumsu approaches Choi and aids him in getting up. He fights with the gang members and knocks them down one by one with his awesome fighting skills. Choi is looking at all this hiding from a distance. Bumsu defeats all of the gangsters, compelling the leader of the gang to walk away. After some while, we learn that Bumsu hails from the same Korean city as Choi and is also an accomplished martial artist. He then leads Chun Bae and Choi to a circus where several Korean immigrants can be seen collaborating to make a living. Everyone in the area respects Bumsu since he is in charge of overseeing the Koreans' housing and has plans to start a Korean school for their kids. Choi then begs Bumsu to teach him his particular kind of martial arts techniques. Bumsu, however, declines Choi's proposal because he has vowed to give up martial arts. Choi consequently crouching outside of Bumsu's house in the pouring rain. The scenario then cuts back in time, revealing that Choi's childhood martial arts instructor was actually Bumsu, since Bumsu had to leave his village and go underground for various personal reasons. Even though it is now morning, Choi is still pleading with Bumsu outside of his house to teach him martial arts. Bumsu, fed up with his constant pestering, ultimately concedes and gives him a martial arts outfit and a book on the fighting technique. He continues by telling him that while power without justice is meaningless, justice without power would result in violence. He suggests that he uses fighting skills to protect himself and others. Soon Choi joins Bumsu and his group and starts working as a rickshaw driver to earn a living. He also uses his free time to learn martial arts from Bumsu. One day, Choi notices some American police officers misbehaving with a Japanese woman. Chun Bae suggests Choi to stay away from it and return home, but Choi moves forwards and faces the officers, saving the girl. Shortly after saving the girl, he becomes popular in the area with the name of Brave Tiger, the one who saves Japanese women from the perverted American officers. He also becomes closer to one of the women he saved, Yoko. In the following scene, Yakuza's men arrive at the circus and start searching for Bumsu, aiming to take revenge for the previous embarrassment in the market. Soon Bumsu emerges from his residence and fights with the gang members alone. Unfortunately, he is soon overpowered and eliminated by the gang leader. When Choi and Chun Bae arrive at the place, they are taken aback to see the Korean immigrants crying and Bumsu lying dead on the ground. The next day, Choi decides to take revenge for his master Bumsu's death and walks alone to Yakuza's headquarters. Surprisingly, the other Korean immigrants follow him, carrying some weapons in their hands. On the other hand, the Yakuza's men can be seen standing by, prepared for when the immigrants assault. The two groups start fighting, and everyone starts hurling punches and weapons everywhere. As soon as one of the Korean immigrants succeeds in stabbing a Yakuza, the gang members severely beat him. After the cops arrive to separate them, the ruckus ends. After deciding to flee to the Himalayas and exile himself, Choi is seen collecting his possessions in the scene that follows. He is acting in this manner because he believes he failed to save his people. When Yoko shows up to stop him, he refuses to change his mind and leaves. Choi begins a rigorous training regimen in the highlands to refine his kicks and movements. Despite having to struggle to survive, he practices day and night in the cold. He creates his own training tools and studies the book that Bumsu previously gave him. He initially has a hard time adjusting to the harsh Himalayan weather, but after several days there, his body starts to adjust and he gets stronger. He exercises his stone-crushing prowess by slamming tree trunks with his hands and breaking them. Choi also conducts specific exercises to strengthen his body and increase his capacity for discomfort. After months of practicing and living alone in the mountains, Choi finally feels that he successfully mastered the martial arts skills taught by his master and from the book. He then runs down the mountains to the city and starts approaching the best fighters in Japan. At first, Choi enters a karate training school called Nijo Dojo. He walks inside the school in his ragged karate clothes and asks the dojo leader to allow his students to fight with him. The dojo leader teases Choi, calling him a bedwetting man, before fulfilling his demand to fight with one of the students. Choi defeats more than 10 of the students, most of them with a single move. Finally, he also defeats the dojo leader and becomes the headline of the newspapers the next day. As the news of Choi being the next version of a great fighter Miyamoto Musashi spreads, it also reaches Kato, who is now the head of the Japan Karate Association. He is frustrated with the fact that a non-Japanese fighter is defeating the best fighters in Japan. On the other hand, Choi continues to win against every fighter in Japan, including those who compete in karate, judo, ninjutsu, aikido, and kabuto. Because of his wins in every fight he takes part in, Choi has become a media sensation in Japan. Additionally, Choi meets with Yoko and confesses to her his fear of life as well as his fear of death. Even more angered by Choi's triumph over the Japanese boxers, Kato addresses the media in a derogatory manner about Choi's fighting style. He also called Choi a thug and says that the skills he employed weren't authentic Japanese martial arts moves. On the other hand, the karate group sends one of its adherents to kill Choi without their knowledge. Choi is observed by the assassin in a market as he passes past and stabs himself in the abdomen with a katana. Choi is subsequently cared after by Yoko till he recovers completely. One day, Choi gets a call from Junbei, and after visiting him, he gets to know that someone is searching for him and will soon attack him if he does not accept the challenge to face Kato. After he walks out from Chunbei's place, he meets the assassin who was sent by the organization. Both of them get involved in a fight until Choi gets the upper hand and kills him. When Choi learns that the guy he killed had a wife and son, he feels terrible about his actions and follows the family down to apologize for what he has done. He approaches the assassin's wife and apologizes for killing her husband. He also offers to work and help them throughout his life. Choi hands over his martial arts uniform to the assassin's wife, swearing that he will never participate in a martial arts battle again. Although the assassin's wife does not accept Choi's apology, he continues kneeling down outside their house pleading to accept his apology. She finally accepts his apology when he takes her son to the top of the mountain and fulfills his wish of seeing the scenery from the top. The assassin's wife then returns Choi's martial arts uniform and asks him to fight for good and become one of the best fighters in Japan. In the following scene, after getting information about Kato's challenge from Junbei, Choi accepts the challenge and approaches them wearing his old martial arts uniform. He sets out on his own to the location where the organization has set up the epic duel between the two strongest warriors. Soon after that, he arrives at the isolated location where Kato and his men are spotted waiting for him. Choi initially engages in combat with Kato's soldiers and swiftly dispatches them. Choi then has the chance to battle Kato after this. On the other hand, Kato thinks that Choi will be easily defeated by his martial arts skills, but when the two start fighting, Kato is surprised to find that Choi's new fighting style is difficult for him to handle. Kato is knocked to the ground by Choi's barrage of hard kicks and punches during their attack. Though Kato tries his best to fight back, his ankle gets broken after he's hit by multiple powerful kicks by Choi. Despite this, Kato prepares for battle and then kneels down to express mercy for Kato's predicament. Choi halts his fist just millimeters from Kato's face. With this, Kato, along with his soldiers, concedes defeat and accepts Choi's method of combat. Choi continues to fight a wild bull after the match is done, grabbing its head and breaking its horns in the process. We are given some real facts about Choi in the film's last scene. He is said to have defeated hundreds of top martial artists from around the world and founded the Kyokushin School of Karate.